This is a water expands upon cooling episode. Um, and this one has to do with methodology. We'll discuss perhaps a little bit the outer planets and its connection to unresolved or cold cases of missing and or murdered people. And I want to talk about methodology in addressing cold cases. I think I briefly addressed it in previous episodes. I think this is episode 4 of Water Expands Upon Cooling. And just if you're new to listening to me and to this series, the name Water Expands Upon Cooling is taken from two inspirations. One is as the solving of cold cases, which I personally ran into through the energy of Bernard de Vries, deceased, um, and the foundation. And the principle that water has a unique property. It does expand upon cooling and not contracts. So it's the way water acts in various temperatures that is just unique and different to other um, forms of matter. So, and the essence is that no case is a cold case, and not only that, the interest in cases increases upon time, and the chances to solve a case increase, not decrease, as time passes. So, truth tends to pop up as the nature of Neptune does, delivering things from the bottom of the ocean and popping up truths. And this episode, I'm addressing the structure. So, first of all, the fact that it can take sometimes several years until you can look at a cold case as, let's say, a journalist or media coverage. Usually it's guided by law enforcement, and they do the thing. And this in itself is very problematic. Okay, it's very problematic because it allows for a loophole where certain infiltrations of the law enforcement system can take force and silence and close the case. Okay, not by solving it for real, for real. Another aspect of this structure, and it's one of the cases that I saw as cold cases that included several murders that were involved with psychiatric pills. It was back in 2007, one of the cases that I saw, and there was no possibility to open the medical records due to supposedly medical secrecy. It's also one of the challenges, the epistemic challenges in bringing into justice those pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals and doctors that enable them, consciously or not, and bring in the evidence of the death tolls of whether it's SSRIs or the Prozacs or any types of antidepressants or beta blockers. I know now I'm talking when there was a big win, many big wins, not just of class lawsuits, but also the research language begins to change around this topic. But we must not forget that when I'm talking structure, okay, then we take out the content, the essence, and we are left with the essence that is the structure, and that is when it comes to a medical welfare issue, the use of medical secrecy and medical privacy to avoid the police from looking into this case, and definitely to avoid media coverage from looking into this case. And yes, and that was addressed by the relevant funds that were looking into this. And then another thing that I want to bring from my hands-on experience when I was towards my end of second degree, I was doing an essay on the study of ESP. And there are CIA declassified stuff. It's not there's stuff that are credible and research valid to read about that. And there are researches about that. And so when you point your focus to a certain topic, you kind of create a point of attraction where you draw in information. And one of the groups the people I drew in was the people who were doing remote viewing and solving cases of missing people and murder cases. Apparently, working with remote viewers and psychic readers on missing people cases and murder cases and cold cases is very prevalent. And this is another thing that I noticed recently, and that was that when there is possibility or desire to solve the case, they would call on the psychics, they would call on the remote viewers, they would work jointly with the remote viewers. When it is not the case, it is not because there is a thought that remote viewers are charlatans or paranormal psychic people are imagining, but because it is just like the hospitals not allowing opening of the medical files to see what medications were these people that went missing and then maybe supposedly suicided or murdered. What were the pills that were involved in the cocktail? Just like that, then removing the epistemic possibility to address these cold cases, whether missing and or murder cases, is a strategic move. I don't know where is it necessarily coming from. You understand that everybody that tends to that, even the reporters, dead and alive. I knew the energy of Peter de Vries after he died. Okay, so these people are psychic as fuck. So it's not coming from like the journalists or something like that, and I don't think it's coming from the foundation. So it's very likely coming from what I'm going to talk about next, and that has to do a little bit with the paranormal. It's astrology. And in astrology, we have outer planets. We have Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, and Aries. And those are slow-moving planets, generational planets. When we have a murder case that touches, okay, in the chart, in the natal chart, in the murder chart, or missing case chart, one of these or more of these outer planets, we are talking about a case that is a part of a series of cases. And those are the cases where we'll begin to see the accumulation of bureaucracy around, whether it's from the medical field, whether it's a cold case that you can't look at, or it takes a lot of time for it to declare a cold case. Whether it's suddenly people don't want paranormal readers or remote viewers. And there is also the structure for what you would be asked, okay? So, for example, if documents are missing, so it's like, who finds these documents? Get, I don't know, so-and-so euros or dollars. Of course you won't find the documents. Maybe they murdered this person for the documents, and so the documents were probably themselves destroyed, and when you move to the digital age, then they were used to create myriad of false identities. So of course you will not find the documents, but whoever, whether it's the law enforcement, would declare that this would be the thing that would solve the case, and that closed the case after several, maybe 1 or 2 decades pass, depending on the place. And then you have a closed case. Yes. And this is why water expands upon cooling is going out. And this has shifted my mind a bit to the point where I may look at cold cases with the names in astrology. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that because I don't want to spike up families, and what I don't want to do is to disturb the lives of people who want to know what happened, and I do not provide with the concrete evidence and the things that they need to understand. What I do want to do is to raise the awareness for the intergenerational, or the series upon series of cases, where if your loved one is one of these series of cases, and you all know what other cases, then you can come together and you can create a change. And on the scale, I think this is important enough. I would try to come up with a sensitivity to do these things in the correct way, and to bring about these connections in ways that are allowing me to continue to talk. And astrology is one of these ways in which I can do this. And I can say, well, this is Neptune, this is Pluto, this is what they rule, and this is a more theoretical and paradigmatic frame of reference, which is intellectual, and I can address it in that way. You can comprise of it what you desire, and this also allows me a certain room and leverage to tend to this topic, plus a very practical way of actually knowing where to look. Okay, so the first one I'll talk about is Neptune, and Neptune is sextiling Pluto. I talked about Neptune in relation to drugs, but also to missing people, and espionage and leakage, and whistleblowers. Pluto is deep psychology. It is, and yes, Neptune would be kind of like the healer and the shaman, but also the drug dealer and the pharmaceutical, the surgeon and the charlatan, but also the psychic reader and the less informed psychic reader or charlatan. So this is Neptune, and Pluto is the cellular change, the core change, the taboo, the underworld, so to speak, but also the compost, the birthing, and the exposure itself. So if Neptune is leaking, Pluto is exposing, transforming from one state to another. When we talk about water expand upon cooling, we bring in both the Neptune reverence, water element, and leaking, which is a very Neptune word, and expands upon cooling is a change of state, which is a Plutonian process. Okay, it's not a nuclei change of state, but it's definitely a transformation that is involving change of temperature, change of density, change of speed, and a threshold, which brings about discovery. So when Saturn is ruling Pluto and is in the sign co-present with Neptune, applying to conjunct Neptune, we are talking about structures decentralized with Pluto in Aquarius, centralized and paramedical with Pluto in Capricorn. So when we talk about cold cases, emanating from people who were born or died around those Pluto since Capricorn. We are talking about high prevalence of organized crime affiliated and infiltrated occult, not occult, but cult affiliated murders. And so the presence, if I talked about the asteroid as the name of the person or the specific case that you can address at this time, and you know, I many times I get kind of like, look at this name, look at this name, look at this name, and I wouldn't know why, and then I would look and I would say, now I'm talking more about the prevalence of those across the border type of phenomena, and this is also where you will find more bureaucratic challenges to even look at the case, to look at the case in all the ways that will bring in the solution, and so on and so forth. To look at all the evidence, okay, if it's medical welfare involved, and so on, at the expense of the family that wants to know, and sometimes it's even a missing person case. And this is where I did decide to step out of my previous kind of undercover activity and contribution and step out into the light. Not because I was not in the light, but because I was not in the limelight doing this, and I understand that this helps raising awareness, and I give you first and foremost the method of the know-how, so that you will be able to do this. You will be able to do this even when I am not attending to it, or whatever happens with me, that you will have the basics, the knowledge, what to look for, what to read, so that you can look at how those cases begin to build up into a paradigm and locate these cases and build in the structure, whether it's to class lawsuits, or to raising awareness, or to social change, or to even just know what happened and why. And I find this important, and this is a part of my contribution towards Uranus on the 22nd degree of Taurus, opposing my 22nd degree Mars in the natal chart and conjuncting Jupiter. So I want this knowledge to be available, and I want you to understand that to recruit, let's say, intelligence people, traffickers, and all these things are intermixed. Okay, the spy and the drug lord and the advocate. This is why when you see a lot of exposures, and I will address this in the last couple of months, we've seen, I got to know the energy of Peter R. de Vries when I was in between houses. He had already died. I was told about him without his name by a person that I was angry at the time. I didn't quite listen. I didn't check into it. And so after his death, recently there were, the advocacy office with one of his children, and another person that was also not apparently, he got discovered as a person who gave bribes, and also was connected with one of the people who instructed to murder Peter R. de Vries. And what people need to understand is that Peter could not be doing his Mr. Geslaffers show without having connections within those organizations, because he would need to be protected in some sort of way that's independent of the police. It's known, okay? Whoever tends to these things, it's known, um, and that when you have an advocacy office, of course, that brings in a myriad of other intricacies. I'm more concerned about him defending the mink, uh, not as bashing or yellow pages, but more as that would put him into an even deeper intricacy, because these criminals, they are not liking usually pedos, unless there were also cultists involved. But these Supreme Court judges have a different take on this, and that would put um, the person into way deeper intricacies. Um, so I do want to address the fact that the blending of worlds is a part of taking action around these things. Okay, I was told about the freeze by a person who was on the other side of a Me Too scandal that I was suffering from. So this is, this, I think it's relevant to mention, um, and it's also important that on those other sides there are many people who are entrapped there, and so there's a lot of complexities to things, and within this complexity, when you think about what can one contribute, what can one do, I think is to look at those cases and to look at what perhaps Peter couldn't talk about with his myriad of intricacies. And as long as I can speak, give the most contribution that I can, and try to be as sensitive as I can to all involved. So I hope I hope you find this useful, and I hope you understand that now you can relate between the excess bureaucracy and excuses that you are told, whether it's privacy of the medical record, or whether it is, stuff like, oh, we don't take paranormal, blah, blah, blah. They work with paranormal readers when they want to solve a murder case or a missing person case. They do. And I mean the law enforcement, not the foundations, which are literally very limited by what the law enforcement would allow them to do. So this is to be very clear on that. Okay, it's nothing but respect to anyone who tends to this. And also, if you want to address those places where we have a series of kidnapping or murdering people and taking their passports and their details to be given to people who were recruited, completely tortured and trained to be intelligence agents, spies, and other or exterminators, and other things, then they need papers, and this is how it's done. So this is just one of the ways, even when we're not talking about organized crime per se. This is one of the ways in which your loved one could be murdered in this situation, especially if they're not recruitable to kind of like a cult, or to like trafficking stuff, they're not recruited or opinionated. And the first case that I ran into this, and I will mention the name now, some of you might have seen it. I was not able to erase this because I tried to record it live for me and not publish it. And this is the cold case of